Our guest today doesn't hand out surface level advice. She hands you a mirror and a flashlight. Amanda is a trained therapist, the founder of the Mindful Path Wellness, and a woman who breaks the patterns others are too scared to question. She's not here to fix you. She's here to show you that on your worst day, you already have what you need. You've just forgotten how to reach for it. So let's wake that part of you up. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
So one of the reasons I wanted you to be on the podcast is because you have such a great energy that you bring. So I wanted people to be able to feel your energy for themselves and experience everything that's you. So when did you first realize that the work you're doing matters to people?
Oh, when did I realize it matters to people? Um, I think just organically throughout the process of engaging in not direct kind of coaching sessions or anything, just engaging in regular everyday conversations with people. I think when you have those conversations and you see the kind of aha moments happen, and that people are realizing, these challenges need to be addressed. The way we view our lives, we need to take agency over it. We need to that we can that we have the power to do that. That is a possibility. I think it was interesting to me in my everyday conversations that I started to notice people really responding in that way, that it was like this light bulb, and the more you have discussions about it and the more I experience myself, the other side of things in my own day to day, and you experience, your interactions with people, and you see where they're stuck, or you see what's kind of missing, and it's playing out in my interactions, kind of pushed me even further to say, like, okay, this is something we need to kind of do to wake up everybody. Like, we need to be putting this out there in the world, that you can live this life of balance and presence, and that you can get rid of past patterns, you can break those, you can not have the expectations, that it is okay to just be who you want to be. When I started to see that, yeah, I think that was when I was really pushed into, this is something I need to kind of to put out there.
Focus on. Yeah. I mean, you have certifications that people can check out on your website that you're very humble about. And you worked with kids that people would fly in from all over the world to work with you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that in itself, I think, would say that you're not only expert at what you do, but you have a way of doing it that makes people comfortable and they see results.
Yeah, I've been very privileged to work with the people that I have, the families that I've worked with over the years, and the trust that people have put in me is humbling, for sure. It is an honor that I do have families who have been with me and have moved to different parts of the world that still feel a connection to come back and work with me and connect with me for themselves, for their kids. That's truly humbling for me, absolutely. And to have long-standing connections and to have people come in and out and come back into my life at different stages of their lives to look for the support was really eye-opening to me. Nice to see that I could make those connections and have that kind of an impression on people. It's still sometimes surreal when you get the feedback, to realize you could have had that much of an impact. But I don't take it lightly either. I really hold that with a lot of the trust that people can put in me is something that I hold on to, and I don't take it lightly, and I don't want to jeopardize that. And I take it very seriously, and it's something that I really want to respect and put everything into it.
What was the moment that you decided you wanted to change paths a little bit? What or direction in what you were doing?
I mean, previously I was in the developmental field and I did that for many years. It was really throughout that's when I went and did my master's in counseling because I found there was a big disconnect from what we were doing with the kids and what the families were experiencing themselves. And I was building these relationships with the parents. And as I was building those relationships, I felt that I wasn't trained to really give them the service that they needed to be able to provide them with kind of the support that they were looking for. And so through that, I decided to take a bit of a different path and move into more of the counseling side of things, counseling psychology. And that was the route I went down so that I could better support these families. And that was what I did for a while in the same developmental sphere and working within the families and that side of things. And then it's just progressed from there to be able to move and expand from that side into just different avenues and working with different groups of people and being able to provide the service on a broader level.
Yeah. And so you help people kind of get out of their own way, let's say at the Mindful Path Wellness, and that's kind of the goal. And what do you think that people kind of misunderstand about themselves? We've had a couple of conversations around um, expectations of society.
Yeah, I think in the broader context, um, as much as we've advanced from years ago, we really haven't as a society. And I think those underlying expectations are still there. For men and women alike, both experience different types of expectations that are put out there. And even more so in today's world, you have access to so much at your fingertips on a regular basis, and yet you're still expected to be present and, be in your life and in the moment. And it is easier now than ever before to not be present, to not be in your life, to not be in the moment. And so I think, that expectation, the way the world has changed, really impacts everybody in being able to just be. Like, I just don't think people can just be anymore. We can never just, be there, be with what we're doing. It's always half and half, and we're always somewhere else. And that creates a set of challenges. And the more that you engage in kind of that distraction and that less presence in your life, the easier that snowballs. And to the point where I don't think people even realize. I don't think, it isn't some big massive breakdown that you have to happen to get to that point. It's the just general sense every day, kind of that overwhelm, that little bit of burnout, that little bit of kind of zoning out, automatic behavior that you go through. Those are all kind of the outcome of the fact that we're just not present in our lives. And so by learning tools, you can kind of start to reshape that narrative. And because we're not changing the world, the world is going to continue to go down the route of technology and social media and having everything at your fingertips. And, that's the way it is. And so learning how to manage that is more important now than ever before.
Yeah. Now, so we talked a bit about expectations and we had some things in common, but one of the things was getting married very young based on, so you come from a European family, I come from Eastern European family, and it was just expected that you have a boyfriend that you're with for a certain amount of time, you get married. And for me, the engagement lasted longer than the marriage because the expectation sets everything up. And then once you actually get into that situation, you're like, we don't have anything in common, like at all. And as time goes on, you're like, okay, now I don't know how to deal with this because no one that I know has been divorced, right? Like, what do I do? And it's like when you follow sort of what the pattern is or what is expected of you, you may be faced with a situation where you don't know what to do. Like I didn't. Like I was like,
And nobody's coming to save you.
well, yeah, I mean, I never had anybody really. My mom would always be there, but my mom never taught us. There's me and my sister. She never taught us failure or rejection, or, I mean, which is not to say we didn't fail at things. I mean, when I was modeling, I'd get said no to a lot, but I was just like, okay, I'm not their thing, right? It wasn't failure to me. So when my marriage was failing, that was big, right? And it was like, I didn't even know how to think about it. So, how would you, if there was one tool in your inner toolbox that you could use to say to somebody, try using this inner tool and see how it helps? Like, is there one? Is it refrain? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if there's one tool that just helps. It's different for every person. Like you said, I was in the same situation. Um, and I think the first step before you even get to the tools is to kind of understand the where and the why. Like, where is it coming from? And it's not about going through your past traumas necessarily and pinpointing everything that's happened that's gone wrong in your life, but it's trying to understand, why did I go along with it? For me, a lot of it was guilt,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of it was guilt, and a lot of that came from, a childhood of people pleasing, right? I had a wonderful family. Like, my parents were great, but the expectation was still, you behave in a certain manner. You go to, I was shy, I was reserved because I was so scared to step out of the box. Not that anything bad was going to happen, but this was the expectation I was raised with. You stay in line, you follow the rules like a good girl, and this is what you do. And so, you fast forward all these years, and I'm in a situation where my heart knew this wasn't the right path to go down, but my brain, I just couldn't do it. And so the guilt and the shame came up, and sure, yep, let's get married and let's go down this path. And then it snowballs, right? And then you have to keep making these decisions that aren't aligned with who you are, because you've made that decision. So you have to just keep going through it. And so, I think figuring out kind of where it comes from is a good base, but also figuring out who you are, before decisions are made. Getting a sense, and it's not an easy thing to do. It's not goals. It's not, what do I want to do in my life? Those are maybe easier to figure out. It's values. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Like, what is it? And, what am I working towards? What type of person do I want to be? And I don't think a lot of people know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I don't think people sit down and consciously think about it. Who is it that I want to be in life? And so when you start to answer those questions, then you could start to use the tools to separate yourself a bit, from the thoughts, the guilt and the shame and the expectations. You can start to separate yourself from it. But if you don't know who you are and you don't know where you're going, you can't unhook from that. It's really hard to unhook from it. And so again, it's not about necessarily figuring out every, slight that has happened in your life and, pinpointing all these moments, but it's just that general sense. And again, it's not, I think people go through and like, oh, well, I didn't have some big trauma in my past, therefore everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be these small little rejections that you don't even think about, but have this profound impact on your sense of who you are and the expectations that you carry throughout all the decisions you make. And they play out in every decision, every interaction.
And I find what's funny about that is because I went through this process myself too, with the only time a parent, so it was my stepfather, said something to me about what I should be going to university for. My growing up, I wanted to be an actress, but no thought about, is that going to make me money, right, or not?
Yeah.
And he just made a point. He just said, like, whatever high percentage of people who act in theater when they get a job are below the poverty line. In my head, And he said, the only people that make a lot of money are famous celebrities. And I was like, I don't want to be a celebrity. I just want to be able to practice my craft that I've been doing, right? Since, and so what I heard was, you're not good enough. You won't make it. You'll be poor. That's what I heard. That's not what he said. So, but I didn't realize that for like 20 years.
Absolutely.
Years, I blamed him for being the person that snatched my dream.
Absolutely. And it stays with you. And then you'll question everything. Every decision you make, it's got that undertone of, well, I'm not good enough. So that's why X, Y, and Z happens. That's why this person rejected me. And it's like, bias and everything that you go into, you've got this idea right off the bat. So you're almost confirmation, like you're almost making it happen, right? You're going into these relationships with this thought of I'm not good enough, or these work interactions or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you will fulfill that prophecy, right? If that is what you believe, you will fulfill it. And then you will get more confirmation that this must be true. And then it just continues, and it's a snowball that you get so tethered to, you can't separate yourself from, and you are one and the same. It is no longer a thought, it is fact. And the minute it becomes fact, it has a hold on you.
Yeah, like those limiting beliefs and things like that, right? Like, so for me, that was sort of the only thing I remembered. So I think I was really fortunate growing up that my mom did the virtual slap from across the room to tell him to shut up. Even though that's why I perceived it, though, as he was saying something bad. And it wasn't until I actually drilled down on that moment that I realized he wasn't saying, he was just concerned about my ability to earn a living. That's all he was saying, for your consideration.
His opinion. He was just giving his advice to you, right? How you interpret it and what you take in, the lens of what you see it through.
Exactly.
So
I find it interesting when we talk about our self-limiting things is, maybe it wasn't even something that someone said. Maybe it was just, you think you can never, if your goal is to be stupid wealthy so you can help the poor or be a philanthropist, and you grew up in a middle income family that basically set the tone for this is what our lot in life is, then you're going to have limiting beliefs on what your ability is without even realizing you're doing it, right? So I find that interesting. So just based on how your relationship is set up.
Pardon me?
Well, I find it interesting about things that happen in a family dynamic, in things that are nonverbal, but then also how we break the patterns of a family dynamic relationship of what society expects and what works for us.
Yeah, and I don't know, because these things just happen without us realizing, right? And they're just kind of there. I don't know that many people break those patterns and that many people begin to become aware of it, because unless you're put into a situation where you have to, or you take the initiative and you notice something's going on here, I need to do something. And a lot of times people don't even know what it is that they're doing, but until you start to open yourself up to that, I don't think those things, they change. And it profoundly affects everything that you do. There's not a moment now that I don't have an interaction, and it might sound like it's this overwhelming, and it isn't, but there's not a moment I don't have an interaction with like a partner or a friend that I'm not almost talking myself through, how I interpret it, how I receive this information. Why am I receiving this in strange ways? Or, what is that? Like, why am I filtering it this way? It doesn't make any sense. And it could be the silliest thing. You send a message to somebody, and they don't respond for a few days. It's like taking it personally. It's like I'm not good enough, right? Or they don't respond, and has nothing to do with me why they don't. But I'm interpreting all of this in these inconsequential, ridiculous interactions that mean nothing. But previously, oh my goodness, it would weigh on me forever. Like, oh, they didn't respond to me for a day. I obviously don't matter to them. They obviously don't care what I have to say. They obviously, and it's not an excuse to say people aren't rude sometimes or people don't behave in certain ways. Of course they do, but it still has nothing to do with me.
Exactly.
And that's the point to separate from, right? Because then you have everything you deal with from the past, and you take on everything else, every interaction, every day, you put that on yourself. It becomes an impossibility eventually, right? You're just weighed down so much. And to separate yourself from it and to not carry it into every other interaction becomes impossible.
Well,
And
it's the
then it's,
whole Mel theory too, right? Let them.
yes,
We don't
absolutely.
control what other people do. So don't put it on you if they don't get back to you.
Well, and we're ego driven people to begin with a lot of times, right? Like we drive through. And so it's this idea, that you think people care about what you've said, what you've done, what your interaction was as much as you do, right? I was someone who would ruminate on what I said to somebody. Like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I said something that, maybe came off the wrong way or sounded in my mind bad.
Yeah.
And I would fixate on that. And this person hasn't even given it a second thought of what I said because they're not thinking about me the way I'm thinking about me. And, I've had moments where I've gone back to people and been like, oh, I'm sorry I said it this way. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, what do you mean you're sorry you said? Like, I haven't even thought about that again.
Yeah.
And I've just wasted 2 days of energy thinking about this thing that didn't matter. But I think we're so driven that way. And we're very ego, right, centered. And yeah, people don't think about us as much as we do. And when you start to realize that, it becomes a little more freeing as well.
Although the closer you get to your 50s, can I say, you care way less. I have a better way to say that I won't say on here, but it's just like as you get closer to it, it's just like, yeah, it just doesn't matter. If I don't control it, why am I going to worry about it?
Oh, and it's funny. I've heard people, women mostly, say that, right? Oh, as you get older, you don't care, and it's so interesting to me because
Well, you don't care as much. You don't care.
yeah, yeah, you don't let it impact you as much, like whatever. And is it you've just been through so much, you're exhausted that I just like I can't care anymore? Is it you've all done the work once you hit a certain age? Like I don't know what it is. I'm 40 now, and it's probably just in the last handful of years that I've really started to do the work, that I've really started to dig in and figure out these pieces and try to live differently. And it's reflected. My husband notices it, friends notice it, and that's great. Okay, so it's working. I notice it. Obviously, I feel it. But it's so interesting to me because the people that have said to me, "Oh, you just, it just doesn't even matter anymore by the time you hit to this page," you're like, "Well, did you do the work?" Or does it just magically go away? Like I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think probably you do more work than the average person because of what you do, right? And while still trying to do the work on yourself. It's the same thing if I relate it to content, right? I'm so busy coaching clients and helping them with their content that when it comes to my content, I kind of go, oh, like, oh, do I even? But we have to put the energy in, right? And I think that it's a combination of awareness of the world and perceptions. We realize our perception of things isn't that we don't have to look through everything with a filter, that same filter of society. I think we just, for women, get to an age where it's like, I don't know how much time I have left. And I don't know how if this is hormones, but let them think what they
Yeah.
want, let them judge me. It doesn't affect my life. Now, obviously, there are things that are important to you in people who are important to you where you still care what they think. But for the general audience, like, I mean, really, I used to care about what people think because I'm loud and I don't have a filter. And partially it's my ADHD, but partially
Wonderful.
it's my personality, right? And people who like me like me. Do I care about those people that don't? No. And I don't even react to people who have a strong reaction to me because it's like, okay, you're entitled. You don't have to like me. It doesn't affect my life, right? So I think it just, you get to it. I can only speak for myself and my friends. It's just, I saw it as we, you continue to climb, that, things that we used to talk about just don't even matter. Don't even matter. And it's not sort of walls.
No.
It's the lack of walls, I think, where it's just, you can let it in, because if you stop caring about what other people think, then it's very freeing.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
absolutely.
hormones too.
Well, there's all those parts of it. And it is so freeing to do in the right way. And that's why I go back to, maybe as you get older, you just become more secure with who you are. This is who I am. This is what matters to me. And so, you said, I care about what some people think of me, like the people that I care about and whatever, and what they think about me. But you probably don't even think about it because you are who you want to be. You are living in line with the values that you want to put out there. So those people are the people that you're going to care about are the ones that are going to be connected to that anyways.
That's true. That's true.
And
So
so it becomes this
it's true.
this
Yes. And because you're who you are, you just made me realize that it's being aligned with yourself
Yeah,
and being
absolutely.
aligned with the people that you care about who are also in alignment with you, right?
You're
So,
only to do that with those people.
yeah,
You can't, if you're not with people, if you're with people who say you're too loud, right, then you will have a hard time being in line with who you are, what you want to do, what you want to be, if you're so worried about what they think that you're not going to be your authentic self. You won't be who you are. And then that doesn't last, right? Like those connections, those relationships naturally don't last.
yeah,
They naturally will fade away. And when people are aware of who they want to be,
yeah.
but you're not aware of who you want to be, and you're constantly adjusting yourself to fit the narrative of every interaction that you have and the person and the places that you are, well, that's where that exhaustion comes in. That's where you're never really present. You're not living authentically. You're not living in line with what your values are, and you're trying to please everybody. And I think there is a large subset of people that do live that way, and that they do experience a lot of burnout because they're trying to match what everything else is. In my interactions, a lot of it comes down to the moms that I interact with.
Mhm.
I have a very um, my relationships and the way that we have worked parenting is different than a lot of people, and the stuff that my husband takes the lead on versus the stuff I take the lead on.
Amazing,
Um,
I want to say. Yes.
hmm?
Which is amazing, I want to say.
Yes, yes, and it's great, and it works for us, and but it's interesting to see the reactions from people about it, and that really comes down to that expectation, that societal expectation, but also that they can't ever see that they could be in that position, that
Yeah.
they can make these decisions, that you can take a step back and decide as a mom, this does or does not work for me. And if the funny part of all of it is a lot of times when you clear your mind and come at it from that open space of who do I want to be and the values that I want to have, you probably will still do a lot of the same things. The example I always give is the bedtime routine with my kids. And as a mom, that expectation that I'm supposed to want to do this because I only have so many years to want to put my kids and do the whole bedtime routine. but it was such a battle every night and it wasn't working. And I wasn't being in line with who I wanted to be, the type of mom that I wanted to be to my kids. And my husband and I made the decision, and my husband focused on bedtime a lot more. But as I did more work on myself and learned about being present and learned how to be aligned and learned how to, um, be comfortable with just when things don't go right, or letting go some of those expectations, I fell back in line with bedtime, and it was completely different experience. So it was never the bedtime that was that, it was my reaction to it, and the whole build up, and then the guilt that follows after, and the idea that, oh, I'm not the mom I want to be and I can't do it. And so I had to do the work, and I had to figure it out myself. And yeah, and the funny thing is, then once you do, now, we both do bedtime and it works great, and everybody's happy. And it's such a small little, part of our day, but those pieces are confirmation to me that it works. Being comfortable now in this situation are pieces that tell me doing the work is worth it. Learning how to be present, learning how to separate myself from, these negative thoughts. They're not facts in my life that weigh on my interactions. Learning how to be present and not distracted, and helping to get rid of some of that overwhelm allows me to fall in line with being the mom I want to be in all my interactions with my kids. And it's great. And then once you get those realizations, you're more willing to do it. And then you're eager to do the work. And then you want to do the work. And then you're so excited to do the work because, oh my goodness, it just opens up everything for you. And your day-to-day experiences are just so much more enjoyable. And it becomes easier. It becomes such a reinforcing thing to do that you just want to do it, and you just want to interact in those ways and be present.
And if you could get rid of one thing in society about how we look at each other, what would it be?
Ooh, if I could get rid of one thing on how we look, I would
How we interact.
how we interact. It's just I want to say the judgments, right? Everybody judges on
That's
this is that.
yeah.
Yeah.
If I could say, yeah.
But the funny thing is, I think judging is a natural instinct. It's just part of everything. So it's not necessarily the initial judgment. I don't think you'll ever get rid of that. I think people always have initial judgments, right? It's the follow up to that, right? It is what happened. Can I change my thoughts? So being curious, I think that's probably, people are just not curious anymore. So whereas I would say change judgments, yes, we never judge anybody. Everybody lives their lives and we don't have a judgment about it. I don't know if that's naturally going to happen, but I think what happens after can change.
Well,
Learning curious.
I think there's a difference between perception and judging. It's a slight shift, but I can honestly say I don't judge people. I don't know their story. I don't know why they do things. So does how you get your groceries or what kind of water you drink, does it affect my life? No. Does it affect the planet? Maybe. So my perception of you may be that maybe you don't care so much about the environment, but maybe you love kids and you help kids. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just our perception of we're making judgments based on small pieces of things. And it just creates stress, right? For you, for me, for everybody. It's like if someone's judging me and they don't even know me or why I'm doing something, then why are you judging me? I'd like to just get rid of judgment altogether. Keep it in the courts. I know we have to have it there, but other than that.
Yeah, I get it. I do. I don't, I feel it is such a instinct, right? To automatically make that, right? We see things, and there's probably some kind of survival instinct to it, right? Historically, people probably had to make quick assessments of situations, and that trickles down to judging the mom on the playground now or the person at the store. And yes, probably no longer for our survival, but for me, I just love being curious, right?
Yeah.
Somebody does something different. And I don't mean in the small things. Like I agree, right? I drink whatever I drink and, why does that matter to anybody? So I mean on kind of those bigger things about people and the way they live and what they're doing. I love the idea of just being curious. Why are we not curious? Why don't we get to know people, right? Why don't we get to find out their stories as much as they want to tell us, right? If I walk into a room like my yoga studio, for example, if I walk in there, I probably will put like, oh, make assumptions, whatever words you want to use about why or who or how somebody's interacting. But the problem to me becomes when you are unable to change those, when
Yeah.
you never investigate it, when you never take the moment, like that blocks your ability, right? Like I'm going to judge you and who you are, and now I won't interact with you, or I'm going to interact with you in that manner. And so, you might make assumptions of somebody, why somebody's doing something or why they're interacting a certain way. But being curious and getting to know people and just being open to that experience, I think gets rid of that. But that's where people are stuck.
Yeah.
I think the judgment is unfortunately there, but it's that next step that I feel can be changed. Like, okay, well, why don't we talk? And obviously, we can ask everybody every question on the planet, but that's not always going to be the case. But in the places where you do spend the most time interacting, or when you do have those abilities and that openness where you could explore and include, and I've seen it. I've seen it myself where people kind of open their, it's happened to me as well, where people kind of open their eyes and I'm like, oh my God, this person is now so important in my life. But a year ago, I would have made a judgment that there's no way. But because I was open to finding out who they are, now they're this huge, factor in my life, for example. And I think that's just by being curious and wanting to know about people. But I don't think we interact in that way anymore. And maybe we never did. I don't know. But I don't think
So busy in our own lives.
we're in our head, we're not present. And so I don't have time to, I barely have time to learn about myself. I don't have any time to learn about you. And that's where I think the barrier is. And as a, community, being able to get really interested in just learning about other people and their experiences is eye-opening. It helps you appreciate the differences out there in a different way where you're not judging, right?
Yeah.
And maybe to that, the more you do practice those pieces of being curious and inquisitive and learning about people, maybe you're right. Then the less you will automatically judge somebody, right? And then that judgment goes away, and it's now I want to be curious about, why are you doing this, or how come that is the water you're drinking,
Yeah.
but maybe that is it. So I think that's what I would change is just getting people to be more curious,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know.
and maybe again, it comes with depending what age group you are and how you've experienced life brings you to a place where maybe you realize I'm not making judgments because listen, I got to focus on myself and where I'm going and understanding my path, and whatever gets you to your path is great. But I've had people yell at me in my face about something, and I don't get upset. I'm just curious. It's like, what happened to you today? Or what is it in me that makes you so angry? Like, and they
And
just,
right, it is a reflection.
because you're young and you're being rude. And no, I'm not. Like, I just pulled into my parking spot. Like, what are you yelling at me for? Right? Like,
Generally what they're experiencing, right? And is being reflected on you. And you are that mirror or whatever, right? And they're reflecting, and that inability to kind of cope with themselves comes out generally on other people. And so I think that's a big realization. Like once you can really start to understand nothing is about me, like like nothing is about me, it's never about me. And once you realize that, you start to take a lot less personal.
yeah.
That's for sure, right? You start start to really practice that, where there's not a whole lot that people can, you know, say to me that's really going to impact me nowadays. And that's not to say people don't have opinions of you that maybe might be true, right? And you know, you take a moment to think about it. If my husband was to say something to me, I wouldn't just be like, that's your problem, not my problem.
No, and I'm not talking about relationship stuff. I'm talking about the world around us. Yeah.
Even still, like the general interactions, I think you can still question it as well. Like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Was I doing something that could have been perceived as, I don't know, rude to this person, right? Are they perceiving it in a way that they're thinking I'm doing something? Then I'm comfortable saying, I'm sorry, you know, that wasn't my intention, right? I'm sorry you misunderstood. You thought I
100%.
was butting in line because of whatever, right? You know, I do that with my daughter a lot because my daughter gets really worked up if somebody says something to her at school, you know, 10-year-olds, right? You're annoying, you're this, you're that. And I say to her, like, you're not. We don't use that language, right? But could you have been doing something that your friend found annoying? Well, I was singing while I was doing my work, but I like to. But can we take a moment to understand that that person might have found that a bit bothersome, intrusive? And so my daughter's becoming really good at reflecting back on those pieces, right? And so because I think there's a fine line between I just don't care anymore. I'm going to do whatever I want no matter what.
Yeah.
And just being really reflective of it and really intentional in what we do. And the more kind of when you live your life with the intention and with purpose and in line with your values, those pieces naturally fall in, right? You naturally have those questions a lot easier versus I'm just going to do whatever I want and never question it.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I say do whatever I want, I mean, I've never said that, do whatever I want, because I'm the type of person that I come from a place of love. So
Mhm.
I'm never out to judge people, and I love everybody. That's where I start.
Yeah.
And so if someone's yelling at me, right? Like this man had a full thing of groceries and he's yelling at me when I pulled into this parking spot. And I'm like, why are you yelling at me? Like, I just got here. I don't understand. And he's like, you parked right up against me. And I said, there's nobody in front of me. What are you talking? Right. Like he's going red. Right. And I said, sir, I'm sorry. You should calm down right now because your face is very red. But there's nobody in front of me. So if you're upset about me parking something, like that's not my vehicle. And he stopped. I said, but I am sorry that you're very upset. Like, could you not just get in your car and drive forward a bit so that you could open your trunk? Like, that to me might be a good solution, but it's up to you totally. Like, you know, I can watch your card if you want to do that. And he just looked at me, goes, that won't be very necessary. Thank you.
But you got inquisitive, right? Like you stopped. A lot of people wouldn't take that time, right? A lot of people react back. And then it escalates, right? And becomes, but you kind of got inquisitive, like, okay, sir, what's going on here? Like, let's figure
Why I
this
was
out.
being yelled. So I usually want to know why someone's yelling at me, right? Like, did I do something? You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just how we approach each other, right? Like, it's just, I know that maybe he did set out to yell at somebody. I don't know. Maybe he spent more than what he wanted, but I was in the line of fire. So I just want to know, like, what's happening? Why are you mad at me? Why are you blaming me for something I know I didn't do? You
Yeah.
know, just because.
But that, to me, that type of an interaction, that type of a response back to somebody, and I don't think you should be disrespected. Like there are just moments where people are just never going to be, you know, aware. They're never going to take that, you know, kind of interaction back, and it might get even worse. So, you know, there are moments where thank you, have a nice day, and you walk away. Absolutely. But that idea of being inclusive, maybe you helped him be more reflective the next time, right? And it's those little shifts that if we, like you said, if we start to interact differently with people, And we just start to have these different types of interactions out there. And again, I go back to being curious and inquisitive, like, okay, what's going on here? As instead of being reactive. And we take those two breaths, and that space is there. Well, maybe then I changed how that person
Yeah.
interacts.
Yeah.
And then their next interaction will be different. And it becomes this big snowball. But you have to start. And it always starts with doing the work yourself, right? If
It's
you
true.
haven't done the work and you haven't gotten good with who am I and what am I going to do, and I'm present and I'm balanced and I know myself, then you probably would have reacted differently, right? You might have been frustrated and overwhelmed and all of that yourself, but you've done the work to be able to be in a situation that is not a positive situation, but react in a manner that still led to a positive outcome.
From
And
a
to
little
me, that's
experience,
powerful.
though.
Yeah, that is it. It takes a lot of experience to get there, right? It does
Yeah.
take the work. And um, my hope is that we can create these toolboxes for people that they learn the skills, that it eventually doesn't take 20 years for every single person to get there.
Actually,
Um,
that was going to be my next comment. Like, what do you want to say to your future clients about if they could hear one message from you on a bad day? Like, what would that be? I took a long time to get to where I got to. And, I don't know because I don't remember because my ADHD brain just doesn't remember stuff. Um, but so I don't know what I was like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Was I where I am now? Definitely not. But
mm,
for clients or future clients that are stuck right now, or um, maybe in a situation where they're feeling like what I did, when my first marriage failed and just didn't know, how do I deal with this? Maybe they've got kids. Like, what would be that one message that you would tell them? Like, just to that would stick with them to remember you, like the inner toolbox, the how they can deal with what they're feeling right at that moment.
I mean, I think there's so many. You're not your thoughts are a big one. Just because you think something doesn't make it a fact. And I think as you start to appreciate those pieces, you can separate yourself because generally, like I said, a lot of it is being hooked on to these unhelpful thoughts and beliefs. And that dictates how we interact, and it dictates what we feel about ourselves and in our daily interactions and everything, work, home, everywhere, community. I think that's the tool, really. I think that's the tool um, to begin, but that it's possible, that it is just possible to live a life that is not full of distraction and overwhelm, that is just, possible to break those old patterns and kind of live authentically. And I think that is something people don't even think about, but don't realize
Okay.
is
That's the line. That's the line that they needed to hear. What you said about it's possible to break patterns and live authentically and without so many distractions. And they just have to get some tools to learn how to do that from you.
it's not even a complicated process. It's just doing it. It's possible, but you have to do the work. Like, you
Yeah.
have to do it. And it's practice. You do it forever. There's no end goal where you're just like, okay, great, I've done everything now. It's not a check
Exactly.
and A plus and you now know it. You have to practice it all the time. It is
Be
something
mindful,
yeah,
right?
you have to be mindful and you have to be aware, and it becomes easier the more you practice it. It definitely becomes like I said before, just something you love to do because it changes every moment of your day when you
So
can live.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, when you can live with intention, every moment becomes easier, even the tough ones.
Yeah.
Because there's still tough moments, but when you're doing it all with intention, it just becomes more possible, right? It's less like walking through the mud. It's just lighter to get there. It's lighter to work through it, um, even those tough moments.
Yeah, and for the people who are needing to hear this message, it it doesn't seem like it's possible to start, but that's why you and people like you are there to help give them the inner toolbox they need to be able to process the world, to help themselves through it, like to really like to go on and be more present, right?
My goal is just to be a guide. I'm there as a guide. This isn't, um, this is really a process that I will walk alongside,
Yeah.
right? Things that I can see that maybe you can't see at this moment, and I will help guide you there. Everybody is so individual on what will work and won't work for them. There's no magic formula. There's no do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
What will magically work out. This again, and my goal is not, this isn't working through a specific challenge. There's wonderful psychotherapists out there to do that work, right? And to go and take those moments. This is an overall, how do I live with intention, purpose, authentically, without the burden, without the overwhelm, without feeling burnt out every moment, that nagging fatigue that just never seems to go away. And my goal is just to be this guide to help people realize it's possible, and it is amazing when you can get there, and to make these small shifts.
Yeah.
You're not broken. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. There's no things that we're gonna change. It's just a shift in your mind, a shift in your perspective, some practice, and learning how to see things a bit differently. And then I'm there to just guide and give those tools and different options, and people will find what works in their lives. It's not going to be the same thing for everybody. I find it, there's a lot of positive stuff on social media these days, a lot of wonderful, people out there putting out all this information. To me, is so overwhelming because it always comes across as, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
If you want to be happier, you have to wake up at 5 a.m. You have to have lemon water before you have your coffee. You have to. And to me, that could work for a lot of people. That will never work for me. I need my coffee first thing, and I'm not waking up at 5 in the morning. And so sometimes that seems so, oh my God, I guess I can never be happy then. I guess I can't live a happy life if I don't drink lemon
Yeah.
water first thing in the morning. And so my goal is,
You're a guide.
yeah, my goal is just to put it out there as like, these are the options, what works. You can be happy even if you don't do everything the exact same way as somebody else. It's what works for you, and it could be the most random thing. Like, there's no, the toolbox that we'll create is what works for this person at
Yeah.
this moment. It's not prescribed. It's not this set of exercises or these set of, skills to learn. It is, pulled from different directions and a variety of things. And it's just a discussion on, what do you need at this moment to live this way?
Yeah.
And then, taking small steps, which create small shifts, which creates a big shift.
An amazing way to wrap up. So thank you. And if you're listening to this and you're paying attention, it means that you needed to hear it. So step 1, tick. Step 2, check out the show information and send Amanda an email, maybe reach out on social media. But Amanda, it's been great. And I think that, when we reach people and they see your energy and it's positive and welcoming, and hopefully people will want to learn more about themselves, how they can cope, how they can be more present. And that makes it better for everybody.
Yeah, happier world, that's for sure.
That's right. Okay. Thanks for being on.
Bye.